Hey everybody, the Super Vader 400 here, back for another retro review, and this time, this is my review of the 1997 arcade game Mortal Kombat 4. Just like I did in my Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe review, I'm going to start off with my history with the video game Mortal Kombat 4. Then I'm going to talk about the gameplay. Then I'm going to talk about the story. Then I'm going to finish it up with things I did not like about the video game video game and like I like I said in previous videos where I've talked about Mortal Kombat 4, I got into the franchise with Mortal Kombat 3. um the mall closest to me used to have an arcade um about um about 19 years ago, and in the arcade I would go there to play Mortal Kombat. I would go there to play Mortal Kombat 3 and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 all the time. And in 1997, right next to the Mortal Kombat 3 arcade machines, there was this brand new Mortal Kombat 4 arcade machines, which this Mortal Kombat game was unlike any Mortal Kombat or any fighting game I've ever seen before. This video game was in 3D, and like I said at that time, I was still mostly playing 2D games. The rest of the video game industry had moved on, and we're now moving on to 3D stuff. But I was still playing 2D video games. The only 3D video games I played were Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct. But this Mortal Kombat game, like I said, was unlike anything I've ever seen before. The graphics, the 3D graphics, the character models, the voice acting. I had never seen that in any previous Mortal Kombat game. In previous Mortal Kombat games, Mortal Kombat 1 through 3, they use storyboards. Well, they use storyboards and slideshows to tell the story. Here, they had full-length cutscenes with characters talking. And this video game was darker, scarier, more serious, and more violent than the previous three Mortal Kombat games. This game right here makes the original three Mortal Kombat games look childish at times. At times, at times, and I played the arcade game several times. Was never able to beat it. I was never able to beat this game. That was until I got it. Until they brought it to the home consoles and I got it for the PlayStation. And I still have the game today, and I still play the game today. I got it for the PlayStation, and the one thing I love about this Mortal Kombat game, in comparison to the first three Mortal Kombat games, was this. It was this. I like how Midway made this Mortal Kombat game accessible to casual gamers. The first three Mortal Kombat games had no mercy on casual gamers or beginners. This video game not only did they make the combat easier, they added a practice mode where you get to learn how to play the game, where you get to learn how to do all the moves and stuff. They added a practice mode where you get to learn how to do all the moves and stuff. And it was this video game right here, Mortal Kombat 4, where I was able to go back and play the first three video games again, and actually beat those games. Prior to playing Mortal Kombat 4, I could never beat the original three Mortal Kombat games. Those games were too damn hard. But this was the first game to make it readily accessible to readily readily accessible to beginners or novice players such as myself. While the gameplay is pretty much the same as Mortal Kombat 3, the game is much more the game is much faster. The martial arts look even more realistic. And they added a cool new move where you can dodge attacks in plane steps and step onto a new plane, similar to the Fatal Fury franchise, to the Fatal Fury franchise, and you can knock people back. You can knock people back and knock people. You can knock people back or forward, giving the game a 3D circular movement. Even though it's still played on a 2D plane, it's still played on a it's still played on the 2D plane, and um all the blood and violence from the previous games are back in. The blood and violence and fatalities look more gruesome and more realistic in this video game than they do in the last one. Case in point, one of my favorite fatalities in Mortal Kombat 4 is Johnny Cage's head punch. In the old Mortal Kombat games, he punches your head and your head falls off. In Mortal Kombat 4, he charges up a beam. He charges up a green energy beam, then punches your head off, making it more realistic, making it more realistic. Liu Kang's and Scorpions, they both have animalities in this game. The animalities look way better here than they did in the last game, where in the last game, the animalities, the animations didn't look, by today's standards. When it first came out, it was awesome, but by today's standards, don't look all that good. Don't look all that good now. The animalities still look great. In this game, Scorpion's Toasty looks much better and more realistic in this video game than it does in the last one, than it does in the last three Mortal Kombat games. In the last three Mortal Kombat games, and and the video game, and when you beat the game, my favorite thing, when you beat the game, each character has its own ending, which is rendered in full length motion capture cutscenes instead of the storyboard and slideshows of the previous Mortal Kombat games and the Mortal Kombat games that came after this. Now this has full length cutscenes with dialogue and voice acting, with dialogue and voice acting. You don't know how blown away I was when I saw this back in '97, and the game still holds up today. The game still holds today. But when I saw this back in '97, when I saw the characters walking, talking, and doing all this stuff, and speaking of walking and talking, when you lose a fight, you have the chance to continue, and and after a certain number of continues, you can't continue, and your character falls into a bloody pit. Your character falls into a pit of spikes, and then of course um, the character roster. The character roster is small but cool. Returning characters include Raiden, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Jax, Sonya, and who else? Oh yeah, returning as a boss character, Goro. Returning as a boss character, Goro. Hidden Noob Saibot. Then of course the new characters, Tanya, Jarek, Reiko, Meat, another hidden character, and of course Kai and Fujin. I like all the characters with the exception of Tanya and Meat. As a kid, I could never unlock Meat, and I always wondered who Meat was. That actually sounded like he was, despite how silly the name was, it actually sounded like he was going to be a badass warrior, and instead it was a red skeleton guy. It was a red skeleton guy, lame. And then of course you got Tanya, who in my opinion, first off, is just a rip off of it's just a poor man's or woman's Jade, and of course the events of Mortal Kombat 4 are because of her. And if you play the game with her, and when her ending, she betrays, in her non-canon ending, she betrays Liu Kang by luring him into a trap with Shinnok and Quan Chi, where Shinnok kills him. So yeah, I don't like Tanya. And she's just the cheapest character. She's just the cheapest character in the game. She's also has probably the worst fatality in the game, where she gets on, where one of her moves, where she snaps your neck with her legs, and she does that multiple times. So she has the worst looking fatality in the video game. And yes, I said I like all the characters except for Tanya. And also gameplay wise, I don't like Shinnok. Story wise, I like Shinnok. Story wise, I like Shinnok, but gameplay wise, I don't like him. First of all, him and Quan Chi are available from the start, so there's really like nothing to really work for when you beat them. Next, Shinnok is the easiest boss in the game. One thing I like and don't like at the same time. And gameplay wise, he just sucks. He's a poor man's Shang Tsung. He's a poor man's Shang Tsung. Storyline wise, he's great, but gameplay wise, he sucks. He sucks. Um, um, Before I get to the story, I'm actually gonna start off with the stuff I don't like already before I get to the story mode. Other things I don't like about Mortal Kombat 4 is the characters, the hidden characters Goro and Noob Saibot do not have endings of their own. When you beat the game, when you when you beat the game, they do not have endings of their own. Characters like Noob Saibot and Goro don't, and the story mode, the story mode, the storyline. I just like the previous games. I wish they would have added more cutscenes or added a cinematic story mode to connect the individual fighter storylines into one giant story, because I want to see how did the Earth Realmers defeat the Elder God Shinnok. How did the Earth Realmers defeated the Elder God Shinnok? I want to know how they defeated Shinnok, and that part isn't clear. It would have made the story more clear. Or this video game, just like Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, had a comic book tie-in which shows you the events that led up to this game. And I wish they would either, if not connecting, if not using cutscenes to connect the different stories into one, I wish they would have adapted. I wish they would have adapted the entire game. Not only show the events that happened before the game, but show the events that happened during the game and after the game. Adapt the whole game. So that's a disappointment. That's a disappointment right there. That's a disappointment right there, and it's probably the only disappointment I have with the video game. There was also an update to this called Mortal Kombat Gold, which added Sector, Cyrax, Baraka, Kung Lao, and 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 yeah, it was added four more, which added, and Melina, which added. Now I think Melina, I don't think Melina was in this game, which added four more characters and had improvised graphics for the new Dreamcast system, and of course and going back to the story mode, love the story mode. The story mode as told in the comic book tie into this game. The Adenian Tanya. The comic starts off with Reptile being tried and sentenced to exile and imprisonment for committing acts in the name of Shao Kahn. For committing acts in the name of Shao Kahn, sh- um, um, Reptile swears vengeance on Sindel and her Edenian people, and then it cuts to then 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 Tanya, the Edenian Tanya shows up with a mysterious man carrying an orb, and Tanya asks Sindel for her wisdom and guidance in helping her free Tre- her homeland Trekkie from an oppressive ruler, just like the Earthrealmers did for Edenia. Sindel tells Tanya she's never heard of her realm, nor the oppressive ruler Shao Kai, something like that. Um, and then the guy next to her pulls out a mysterious orb, and Sindel becomes drawn to the orb, and then Quan Chi takes off his hood, and um, right there, Tanya reveals that she led Shinnok and Quan Chi into the nether realm, and Shinnok's first first goal. Shinnok's goal is to get revenge on the elder gods for sending him to the for sending him to the nether realm, and in doing so, first he must conquer Adenia. It then cuts back to Earth realm, with Sonya chasing Jarek and meeting up with Johnny Cage, who's filming a movie called Massive Strike. Liu Kang training Kai, where this is where Fujin falls from the sky after he was battling one of the demons, and Raiden comes and identifies who Fujin was and tells him that Liu Kang and the Earth Realmers need to go to Adenia, and take the fight to Shinnok and Quan Chi, while Raiden, I keep forgetting where he said he was going, while he takes the fight elsewhere. Sonya and Johnny Cage arrive on a helicopter, and the comic ends with all of them going to Adenia, Adenia, and Quan Chi there welcomes them to a Mortal Kombat they've never seen before. And when you beat the game, you get to see each character's endings, and pretty much everybody's endings are canon, with the exception of Jarek's, Sub-Zero's, even though he probably had the best one, Sub-Zero's, and of course Quan Chi and Reptile's endings. Scorpion's endings is also probably my favorite. Scorpion's, Fuji's, and Raiden's endings are probably my favorites because they lead to the events of and Liu Kang's, because they all lead to the events of Deadly Alliance, the sequel and follow up to this video game. Like I said, in previous videos, if I were to choose, like I said, that's one of the things I love about Midway. Midway or NetherRealm Studios. Well, this was at least up until Mortal Kombat 9. From Mortal Kombat 1 all the way to 8, they always said, "This is good, but how can we make this better?" And Mortal Kombat 4, in my opinion, is probably the best. Is probably, once again, the next to Mortal Kombat versus DC and the 6th generation Mortal Kombat games, is probably the best Mortal Kombat game of all time. And speaking of Mortal Kombat games, I want to talk about some of the other stuff, the unlockable content. The combat codes in this game were much better than the ones in the previous Mortal Kombat games. You get the by entering several different codes at the versus screen, you get several gameplay modes, such as my three favorites: one button fatalities, where you can perform fatalities with one button; weapons combat. In this video game, you can use weapons, but in normal combat, if you get hit, the weapon falls out of your hand. You can also pick up weapons or objects on certain levels and throw them at people, and throw them at people. And speaking of levels, of course, I forgot about the level designs in this game. You have the forest with the talking trees. You have the Nether Realm headquarters where Quan Chi and Shinnok plot. Um, Shinnok's sanctuary. Um, the Nether Realm, Scorpion's lair, the lava place. Um, um, then of course you got the Shaolin Temple, that the original Sub-Zero behind the first level of Mythology Sub-Zero. Um, Mythology Sub-Zero. You have Raiden stage with the rain, and of course you have the portal stage with the talking wall. So like I said, lots of awesome, cool 3D arenas, especially the Raiden stage with the rain, and with the rain and lightning. And continuing with the unlockables, so you have the weapons combat. Then of course, Noob Saibot. Noob Saibot. If you enter the codes, I think it's 012 012. You get Noob Saibot. You get Noob Saibot. Then of course, if you highlight characters, you get alternate costumes. You get Sub Zero. You get unmasked Sub Zero, and another Sub Zero, and his other form, which shows his legs and arms frozen. Frozen. When I was younger, I used to believe that was Bayhan, the older Sub Zero, back from the dead, from the first Mortal Kombat movie. I used to believe that was him back from the dead, up until I got older and learned the movies, Mortal Kombat movies, weren't canon. But yeah, the alternate costumes. So like I said, the unlockables were much better in this game. In gameplay modes, not only do you have arcade mode with you have one-on-one combat, two-on-two combat, versus mode, multiplayer tournament mode, I think 1 to 8 player tournament mode, two endurance modes, one which is the tournament ladder where you face the characters in the tournament ladder, then another endurance mode where you face a series of random opponents, where you face a series of random opponents, and of course practice mode, which practice mode gave me ability to actually play Mortal Kombat. And throughout this mode, you get to play with the AI moving or play with the AI not moving in Goro's lair. Goro's lair. That's another cool level that I forgot about. That I forgot to mention. So and of course Goro's playing, but I keep forgetting how you play him. And I'm also disappointed that Goro doesn't have a fatality in this game. But like I said, this is probably the best Mortal Kombat. This is probably one of the best Mortal Kombat games. This is probably one of the best Mortal Kombat games of all time. I like all the Mortal Kombats from one all the way to eight, But this is probably the best Mortal Kombat games. And going back to the realistic martial arts, like I said, yeah, the martial arts is like realistic. Fujin, one of my favorite, the character I play as the most. Character I play as the most. When you see his combos, you see him doing Taekwondo. You see him doing Taekwondo. There's actually a little bit of difference when it comes to moves and stuff. They also added moves such as now the characters have a joint lock move. They have a joint lock move where they snap a neck, break a back, do an arm bar, twist an arm, twist a leg. So they have a joint lock maneuver. Combos are much easier to perform in this video game. And the characters, I love the realism. The characters Bao and Kata. The characters Bao, Kata, or pose before the match ends, before the match begins, and the ending poses, and the ending poses are more realistic when the match is over. So like I said, Mortal Kombat 4, one of the best in my opinion. Also underrated, most underrated games of all time. A lot of people say Mortal Kombat 2 is the best. I love Mortal Kombat 2, but I think 3 and 4 especially, were way better. Well, like I said, this was my review of Mortal Kombat 4. All right, I'm done.